I woke up that Saturday morning, and it was the first time in my life where I was fully depressed and did not want to wake up. I just wanted to lay there. For those that have been there, you know the feeling. You just have zero motivation to do anything. And that was such a debilitating feeling. At that time, when I was just trying to figure out which way was up, depression did play a role, man. And it was tough because folks can say what they want about depression or anxiety or mental health. And I think now, in this day and age, it's very much understood that it's a very real thing. To that point, it was such a real feeling that nothing mattered. That was a tough thing to live through at the time.
This is Alone and Unafraid. Welcome to Alone and Unafraid, the podcast where we explore the intersections of everyday life and mental health and mindset with ordinary individuals who have faced incredible challenges. Today, we have a remarkable guest whose journey from the battlefield to the guitar workshop is truly inspiring. Lieutenant Colonel retired Ben Channels began his distinguished military career in 1998 as a private in the Army National Guard. Commissioned as an officer in 2002 from Texas A&M University, we served together in both the 25th Infantry Division and the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment Airborne. Ben has over 13 combat tours as an MH-60 Mike DAP pilot with 1st Battalion, 160th SOAR. His career culminated in his role as commander of the 12th Aviation Battalion at Fort Belvoir, Virginia. Following his retirement, Ben founded Reveille Guitar Project, a Virginia-based 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to teaching special operators the art of guitar building. This remarkable initiative not only fosters creativity, but provides therapeutic support for those who have served our nation. Today, Ben resides in Arlington, Virginia, with his wife, Courtney, and their 3 children. Join us as we delve into the highs and lows, his passions for guitar buildings, and the impact he hopes to make with his nonprofit. Ben is not only a phenomenal human being, he's also a dedicated dad and just a laid-back dude who, if I remember right, loves a game of Texas Hold'em. I'm honored to chat with you today. Welcome to the show, my friend.
It's great to be here, Thad. Thank you.
Do you still play poker?
Not at all, man. But I still have that interest. When somebody says like, hey, like, you know, there's this poker tournament that's going on, you know, at this time and date, I'm always like, you know, my ears like perk up a little bit, and I'm like, oh, I remember those times we used to spend all night playing Texas Hold'em. But that, you know, it's totally lost on me now at this point.
Yeah, there was a time, so going back, you and I first met in 2006. I was assigned to Bravo Company, 2nd Battalion, 25th Aviation Regiment out of Schofield Wheeler Army Airfield in Hawaii. And I think you had just left the company and went to battalion when I got there. And then I think you were in the 3 shop, right?
That's right. Yeah. Maybe I did do a little bit of, I think I was the 3 shop. I think it was after that, because I did the 03 rotation with the same unit to Afghanistan, but I was in the 4 shop afterwards. So yeah, I think that's solid. I went to the 3 shop.
Yeah, I think when I got to Hawaii in April of 06, right before we went to Iraq, and I feel like you were in the 3 shop, but you still had a lot of ties to the flight company. You were still flying with us. And I just remember in Iraq, you lived over there in those tents, and you guys would have these poker tournaments all the time. I feel like that's every night it was poker.
Yeah. Yeah. Old
Yeah,
Garrett and KC as roommates. Yeah.
Yeah. So to kind of just give us a little bit of background from your perspective of what you've done and where your career has taken you, and just tell the world what you want them to know about you.
Well, first, again, I'm very thankful to be on the program with you tonight. And, I've known you for, like you said, almost 20 years, I guess, at this point. And you've always been, so great to talk to. So, I've been looking forward to getting on here and talking to you about some of my, experiences and how those may resonate with you in yours. But yeah, I mean, I was just a normal, kid growing up in a military family. So it was almost, from an early age where I just knew that I was going to go into the Army. It was never pushed on me from my parents. It was just always, kind of expected that I would expect myself that I would get involved and end up joining as soon as I could. And that's why, I initially started with the National Guard right as I graduated high school and then went through Texas A&M. Like you mentioned, in a previous podcast that you were seeking to go to West Point. I was also at the time, but I just didn't have the test scores. And I didn't really know anything about the prep school and how all that worked. I just wanted that instant gratification of getting accepted to West Point. And it just didn't play out. My dad was working for a guy at the time who was an Aggie from Texas A&M. And he said, listen, man, you've got to go down and check out the school. So I went down and, that sealed the deal, so to speak, for me. And I ended up at A&M and I'm thankful for it for multitude of reasons, but it was just a great place to be and really aligned with my goals. And then, kind of, you alluded to just, as I commissioned in the Army aviation, I made my way through a few years of, flight school and training, and then out to 225 aviation where we met. And then just around the same time, as soon as we got back from that Iraq deployment in 2007, the 15-month pump, I did go assess and went to the 160th and kind of never looked back. And it just has been a good career. I've hit all the milestones just like anybody else, in my career path where, you'd command a company. I ended up commanding two, one as a captain, one as a major. And then, you do your staff tours, you get joint qualified. I spent some time at the Pentagon at our Human Resources Command, which was a great job. And then landed my, final role at Fort Belvoir as a battalion commander. And that rounded out my career. And it wasn't until much later in life, probably within, plus or minus 1 year of battalion command, where I just decided, hey, I'm going to go command and then I'm going to do something else afterwards. And so now I'm a defense contractor. But that's kind of what led me from, going to Texas A&M and getting institutionalized through the military and coming out on the other side.
And most people probably, I would assume probably 50% of the audience probably knows that Texas A&M has a corps of cadets that's essentially like a military school. I mean, you live in, I guess they're dorms, but are they like barracks, or what do they call them at Texas A&M? Are they dorms?
Yeah, we called them dorms. Yep. Yeah, they were dorms. But you do live with the Corps of Cadets on, it's called the Quad. Now, when we were there, they were pretty old buildings that weren't, they had no frills whatsoever. We're talking late 90s, early 2000s. And since then, they've been renovated. Multi-millions of dollars have been pumped into these rooms, and they are beautiful. I mean, they're state of the art now. But we all live together. There's something like 2,000 cadets at the time. I want to say they're above 2,000 cadets now within the Corps. And in general, I think it's led the way in ROTC in terms of enrollment. So outside the service academies, A&M has had the most ROTC cadets, writ large. And you got to think that's competing with Virginia Tech, Citadel, VMI, schools like that have, military programs that are a core of cadets. It's the lifestyle you live.
Yeah, I remember when I was, the thing that stood out about Texas A&M were three things to me. Is they had those drill sergeant hats, and those really tall. It reminded me of something you'd see from like 1918, like they had the shiny boots and what do they call those, campaign hats, and then the drill team. I remember I don't know if it's still a thing or when you went there, but I kind of remember the drill team has like a steel pot, kind of like a really shiny steel pot helmet, and maybe they were even chrome. It's been so long, but I remember Texas A&M is one of those schools that have a massive Corps of Cadets. And is it only Army or ROTC, or is it other service ROTCs there?
Yeah, they have all the services, and your memory is correct. You really have a wonderful memory. They are chrome helmets, and it was the fish drill teams, the freshmen. Unfortunately, when I was there, it was disbanded for a couple of years because they'd gotten into some trouble, but have since returned. And so all the services exist. So you had, the 2 Army brigades, if my memory serves me right, 1 or 2 wings for the Air Force. You had the Marine Regiment, as well as the Navy, and it was just just kind of what you did. But the uniforms, are similar to the ones that the Army brought back now, the pinks and greens, and those are part of what the Corps would wear. We had several uniforms, but the pinks and greens were no stranger to me when we got them in the Army. And then the boots you wear as a senior, which that's like a big deal, right? When you get the boots, it's like a big deal. Yeah, and I still got mine. I think they're in my attic. But when you come up to DC, and I still think I have the drill sergeant hat, the drill instructor hat. So you come out, you can wear the drill instructor hat. I wear the boots, and we could play Army, relive old times.
Yeah, yeah. It's straight to gay. It's all good though. But for our UK listeners and Australian buddies, the ROTC is called the Reserve Officers Training Corps, and it's how outside the service academies in the United States, how we commission officers into the service. There's also officer candidate school, which is for enlisted soldiers to go to OCS. But by and large, the vast majority of officers in the U.S. military go through ROTC, which is a program at a college that allows them to commission into the military. So kind of to back up just a bit, you came from a military family. How was that, moving around? Because, you and I both spent over 20 years in the military, and typically in the conventional forces, you move about every 3 years. So were you moving around a lot, or did you stay in kind of one place?
So we did move every 3 years on average growing up. And it was, in the 80s, early 90s time frame. So that was a thing. That's how the Army, operated at the time. And, my dad was a field artillery officer, ended up going into acquisitions. But it was pick up and move every 2-3 years. And how I felt as a child was pretty good about it. Not a little known fact about me, but for those that have never heard from me before, I'm a triplet, and I have two sisters that are triplets along with me. So it was no easy endeavor to move the entire family. And I also have two older brothers as well. But they're 9 and 14 years older, respectively. So really, it was just the core, the two sisters and me, and then my parents that would move. And what I found was it was a good experience. I would be able to go to a new school, to go onto a new, I played soccer growing up. And I was able to make friends like relatively quickly. I could start a conversation with just about anybody anywhere, and I think that has really helped me as an adult, because I can do the same now. I can walk into a room of folks I don't know and pick up a conversation. But I think it also had, and it did not hit me until much later in life, there is a definite negative outcome that has shaped me as an adult. I learned at a very early age that I needed to, when I was in a situation of living somewhere and we had to move, I had to emotionally cut off, because I knew I was no longer going to be with, the group of friends that I had. And I was able at that early age to put up the wall, cut off, move, and then go make friends other places. And for years, I would say, oh man, this is great. Like, sure, you grew up in your hometown for, 25, 30 years. Like, good for you. Like, everybody knows your business. I used to brag that, like, I have friends all over the place. I can go just about any region of the country and find someone that I grew up with or, lived near at any given time. But it wasn't until later on that I realized that I was training myself to emotionally cut off people. And that has affected my relationships with my own family, my wife. So my wife is Courtney, and we've been married. Gosh, it's going to be 10 years in October. So, we've been together since 2000 and I want to say 2000 and we may have to edit this part out when you can't think of.
No, it's staying in.
Yeah,
now
that's
you're
right.
in hot water.
Yeah, no, I'm screwed. 2010, I think is when we initially met. But all that to be said is, it's affected us. It's affected, my own kids, and I have 3 kids. I have a almost 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and an almost 2-year-old. So I'm right in the thick of it. But it's been interesting to understand that back then has shaped who I am now, and the compartmentalization of my emotions has done me a favor, especially working in special operations. I mean, what a great skill to have when you can go somewhere, you can be involved, and then you can emotionally cut off and move on to the next thing. So I've been training my entire life to be this way. But I am now starting to understand the negative impact that it has on those around me.
Yeah. Do you kind of 2-part question? Do you think that shaped your decision to get out of the Army? Did you have that figured out as you were had made the decision to retire, or did that have an impact on it? And go ahead and get that one, and I'll follow up with the next one.
Yeah, so I was aware of it certainly when I made the decision to get out. But without question, my decision to get out is, and this, having kids as well, my priorities completely changed, and in a good way. Of course, it's to bring up your kids and make sure that they have all the resources and opportunities. But that really is what. It's not about me anymore, and it's about them. And I think that was really the ultimate decision, aspect of me getting out. But yeah, me being the one that I think absolutely, I don't want to put my kids through the same, I'm trying to think of a better way of saying it. I want them to have a more stable childhood to where they don't have, they're not forced to emotionally cut other people off.
Yeah, I think it's an important life skill to learn, and at least I think I'm in the same. I didn't really think about it until you said it, but I'm probably in the same camp. Even, my dad was in the Navy, but my parents were divorced long before he or long after he got out. It was before my time, and it had a big impact on me. But we constantly moved, and I never thought about it until you just mentioned that. And, it's so weird that it's probably served you well until, if you really think about your time, you did 4 years in the Texas A&M Corps Cadets, and then you had, let's throw two months of basic training when you enlisted in the Guard, and then we're gonna throw about a year plus for flight school and the OBC, Officer Basic Course. I don't even know what they call it now. It's probably still OBC, maybe. But
maybe.
So let's just say
it's changed.
Yeah, who cares? We're not in the Army anymore, and we can say that. But so let's say cumulatively, you've got about 6 years to become a soldier, and then as you you're getting out, you decide that you want to get out so you can kind of more stable for your kids, and you don't really get 6 years to learn how to undo being a soldier. Has that transition from being a soldier, your last assignment, you're a battalion commander, and arguably in charge of a pretty critical mission in DC, flying a lot of high-ranking military officers, and I'm assuming congressional folks, and there's also some other missions that are involved in that. But you didn't get, none of us got like 6 years to unlearn how to be a civilian. So it's pretty remarkable that you probably knew about that getting out, and B, that you made a conscious decision to stay in, because you're probably one of those guys that's a soldier. And a lot of that, I can kind of see you staying in. I think you could have stayed in and wrote your own ticket, but you made a conscious decision for your kids, which kind of speaks volume to you and your character. But how was that transition getting out of the Army? Did you feel like it was a natural thing that was easy, or was it difficult, or what was your take on it in the time frame for you to get out?
So yeah, a couple things to unpack. I think one, I will say that when I did time as a branch chief at Human Resources Command, and for those out there that aren't too familiar with it, there was a tour that I did for 2 years in which I managed careers of those that were in the unit that Thad and I were in. So I got to see behind the curtain, so to speak, how career timelines really worked. Like you see people that are doing great things, no doubt. And, everybody wants to talk about, X officer that's doing, these awesome commands, and, that's what's talked about. But what I saw was everybody's, path. And it just occurred to me then that it's pretty damn tough once you finish battalion command. Not to say that battalion command is not tough. Battalion command is tough, but from a moving and family perspective, you are at the whim of the Army, and you have very little control on, what you would like to do versus what the Army is going to set up for you. And that is by design. There's nothing wrong with it. You just got to make a decision. Is this something that I want to be a part of? And so that was also in the algorithm, of deciding to get out, is kind of seeing, the paths of others. Because I could still, I could still be in the rat race, and I could still be fighting, hopefully to get promoted to general officer, or, that special command that everybody wants, whatever command it may be. I just didn't. For the chances of ending up in one of those billets or with that promotion, the chances are so slim and competitive. I made a decision like, hey, I'm going to cut it off when I'm at a peak in my career as a battalion commander. And then I still have juice left in me to go off and do, more in the civilian side. And then, go ahead.
I was going to say, and there's also a political aspect, or at least there's a perceived political aspect of after that 05 level, when you go to 06, and you could probably stay kind of apolitical maybe at the 06 level, but once you go north of that, as much as everybody says it's not political, and I don't mean political like left or right. I'm just saying whatever the flavor of the week is, that's kind of at that level. And there are a lot of great generals. Some of them are my friends, and they're great guys. There is a level of, I don't want to say agenda, but there is probably at those higher levels, you've got to kind of go along with the narrative, or you're not a general anymore. I mean, do you think I'm out on another planet on that one, or do you think there's some truth
I think that's
to
right. No, I think there's truth to it. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's a path that you have to choose and decide as a family to take. And there are people that are definitely, more conditioned to do that. And I'm just not one of those folks. And so I was able to recognize that. But I also want to go back to fast forward to, kind of answer the other part of your question, because I kind of backed up a little bit when I started talking about human resources. How did the transition go when I ultimately got out? And I think that this probably does resonate with a lot of folks in our shoes, but I had about 9 months of time built up between doing an internship and leave from when I stopped working to when I actually separated from the military. We're talking a huge swath of time, which was awesome. But at the same time, I had to figure out who I was as a person. Well, it briefs very well when I'm like, man, I've got 9 months to figure this out. This is going to be awesome. Everybody told me I need to take the time during a transition. Well, what I did not expect was that I was going to be the default, hashtag daddy daycare as soon as I stopped working for the Army. And I don't say that in a bad way whatsoever. It's just not what I expected. And of course, I should have been the one, in the summer when I finished, the summer of 23, that clearly I'd be the one driving the kids to school. I'd be taking them to their appointments. I'd be going to, their gingerbread social during the holidays. All those things, absolutely. That's part of the reason why I got out. What I did not expect, though, was how much it truncates a day when one thing, is added to that schedule. And I have always very much underestimated the amount of work that a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad does. And I have a newfound respect for it, because that was where my initial frustration really played out. I'm like, I didn't ask for this. And here I am doing, I'm taking the kids to school. I'm picking them up. I've got like maybe 6 hours in there. I've got to do something for myself. So I'd go to the gym, and I know that sounds selfish, but we've got to do self-care. We are absolutely, you got to stay on the self-care side of things. And let's say, if I had, 2 phone calls in there to talk to prospective employers, that's my entire day. And I'd be lucky to get 1 or 2 things done. So it was interesting.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm actually living this right now with my wife. She's in nursing school, and she's in the accelerated program, and it is brutal. And she's studying, she's up at 5 a.m. She's gone from the house. If they're clinical, she's out of the house at 5. She's not getting home usually until 4. We hit the gym. We do work out as much as we can together. And then she's, throw some food in her face, and then she's studying from, 6:30 to midnight again. And I'm left at home, which I'm happy to do, but I kind of got frustrated with her the other day. And I'm like, I'm doing all the laundry. I'm folding everything. I'm running the kids. And luckily, I won't say luckily, but my 3 kids, 2 of them are out of the house. I've got 1 left at home, but he's, he has wrestling and events, and I'm running all over the place, going to the DMV, and there's not a lot of time left for me. And it is so I totally agree with you. And we weren't in an argument, but I was just kind of voicing my frustration, and she looked at me, and I knew what she was going to say. And I'm like, I know you did it for 24 years with me being gone all the time, and you did it with a happy heart. And this is just one of those things that I think in generally speaking, women are just better at. And so major big ups to all the ladies and stay-at-home dads who do this while their significant other is deployed or out there doing, shift work like fire and police officers. And I think the other thing I wanted to, you said self-care is important. And I used to when I was in the Army, my wife would be like, you need to take care, you need to do self-care. And I used to think that was total bullshit. And I just thought it was like a really weak thing to do. And I think now the opposite is true. I think most women will tell you that when they see a man taking care of themselves, and I'm talking all the way down on like the grooming level, just clipping your toenails and your fingernails, and you have to do those things, even though, if you have a beard, make sure it's not, you don't want to go full ZZ Top. You never go full ZZ Top unless you're a biker guy, then that's cool. But you know what I'm saying? Like you've got to keep it. You have to do that self-care. We're not necessarily talking like massages and spa days, although maybe that might be good. I think most women will tell you that it's kind of sexy if you take care of yourself. So I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people probably, there was a time in my life that, dude, I had trouble like brushing my teeth, and I don't mean that from a perspective of like I was a dirty bird, just the motivation to lift the toothbrush to put it in my mouth, because I was, depressed or anxious about something. Like I could not do it. And I remember my wife would, hey, come on, we're going to go to the bathroom. I'm going to, she would put the toothbrush in my hand, and, she's, come on, you can do it, like a little, like she would with our kids. And it's not in the same vein, but self-care is important. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. And listen, man, like everybody has a right to their own self-care, and it can be anything, like you just mentioned, anything. My view is you just got to be consistent with something, and find what works for you. And mine happens to be like, I just happen to go to the gym. And I'm not a morning workout gym person. I just can't do it. I'm a like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning, gym goer. And it's a lot less busy in there as well because everybody else is working. Although I don't think, as a community or society writ large, too many people are working in an office anymore. It doesn't seem like it around here, at least where I am. But yeah, that's kind of when I go, and that's just what I do, man. And I agree. You just got to find your thing and be consistent.
Yeah. Yeah. I usually go at 5, between 5 and 6. And, when I'm on nights, when I'm flying nights, I'll go in the morning. But here in Florida, all the blue hairs are in there about 10 a.m. It's prime old folks season, and which is great because the free weights are always open. But as you get older, now I kind of limit. I'm not on that bench anymore. I'm doing more cables and machines just because I need some stability. I can't be in there, on the flat bench just throwing up all kinds of weight and stuff. But I like to go in the afternoon because it's like a second shot of energy. If I hit the gym, I'm kind of coming down, around 2 p.m. I'm starting to feel tired. And then I kind of just rally to get through the day. And then I hit the gym. I'm usually typically in there by 5. And then I work out with my wife. We work out together. Usually with her trainer. He's a great dude. I talk about him all the time on this podcast.
Yeah, you call him Coach, right?
Yeah, Coach. He's the man. Yeah. He's from Jersey, and he is like picture New Jersey, and that's the picture of that is George. He's
I love it.
The attitude, that's it. That is him. And so the gold chain, us working out. Yeah. He doesn't wear a gold chain, but I bet he did in the past. But for us working out in the afternoon is like an extra shot of energy that'll kind of push us to 10 p.m. But I've been a kind of on and off gym person. In the organization came from, it was highly encouraged to be physically fit, obviously. And I was kind of in that camp of, I was fit, but I wasn't like a CrossFit fanatic and in there 24/7. And the whole kind of scene sort of turned me off to it because people were, I can distinctly remember being deployed in the chow hall, and I'm getting like, remember those big slabs of cheesecake? Do you remember those?
Oh,
they were like these Sara Lee cheesecakes. Yep. And I would get those, and when we get those white
sometimes
macadamia
they'd be
nut
frozen
cookies,
and you'd be like, oh.
Yeah, they'd be frozen.
Oh, yeah.
And I would get those white macadamia nut cookies. They would come in like 6 in a pack. And I would take 2 of those cookies and a slab of cheese. It was probably like, 3,000 calories. And I would just eat a cookie cheesecake sandwich. And I can remember so many times people like looking at me with disgust, like, you should be working out. And I'm like, I'm a fucking grown man. If I want to eat this fucking cheesecake, I'm going to eat this cheesecake cookie. Fuck you, man. But like, so many times that people would just look at me and but anyways, that's a whole diatribe. But I think as I get older, the older you get, you realize that health is actually really, really important, and staying tuned up and in shape, it's just clutch, because now everything hurts. If I don't work out, I feel like shit.
Yeah, and I'm the same. And of course, just like anybody else on here, I think has also said, like, if they don't work out, it also affects their emotional well-being. Same thing with me. And I've really found over the last couple of years, 2-3 years, that it isn't just the exercise and eating right. And we could, that could be another conversation about, whether or not I eat right. Because I will binge on some chocolate on the weekends and I just can't help myself. But I will say, so the exercise and nutrition, great. Those are clear, obvious, ways that you can stay and remain healthy. But man, I got to throw the third one in there, and it's sleep. And I know that's very common sense, but I think more and more now folks are advocating like you got to get all three. Like you got to get a balance in all three. Otherwise, you're going to be fighting one of those, or your metabolism's going to slow down, especially at our age. Is adding that sleep in there, and I'm talking that like the amount of sleep. It's the quality of sleep. So.
Yeah, we my wife and I are big sleep fans. We do not all the time, but valerian root before bed. That stuff is pretty awesome. There's also an app we use, and I've talked about it here on before. It's called New Calm, and it's a free trial. And they're not like sponsoring this thing or anything. I did it once, and it was really good sleep. We sleep with like a white noise machine as well. But I have crazy bad tinnitus, so that kind of helps. So I think you're right. Those three things, and I only go to the gym 3 times a week. We do a minimum of 24-hour rest between workouts. Sometimes 48 hours if we go really hard, and it's paid dividends, I think. But to kind of go back, with we're kind of in this space right now of eating right and sleeping, and but how was it when you because I think probably a lot of people do know about the 160th, and probably a lot of people are familiar with the DAP mission, but those are the armed Blackhawks that you kind of see on TV a lot, or maybe you don't. I mean, maybe I can see them because I'm used to seeing them. But what was your experience like in 1st Battalion, and kind of how it was being in a really high functioning, where excellence is demanded every day, and then kind of going from 6th gear down to like 1st gear. And that's not meant to be a dig on anybody or organization or corporation. It's just the reality of coming from an organization like that. Because I know for me, when I left the organization and became a civilian, I thought I thought I was going to shift into a higher gear. I'd seen all these things about being a civilian and how it's super efficient, and maybe that's out there, but I have yet to work a civilian job where everybody on the team, by and large, wants to be there, puts in 120%, and kind of earns it every day. So what was that background? What was that like coming from that community as a DAP guy, and then, going back to the conventional forces and then becoming a civilian?
Yeah. So, let me start with this. When I got to the 160th, back in, late 2007, early 2008, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I know a lot of people don't like that phrase, but, I kind of went into it, eyes wide open, and just thought, hey, this is awesome. This is cool. It's all about the mission. But as you get inculcated in, our green platoon, which is the training program, as you get involved with the organization as a whole, you realize that you are surrounded by some exceptional people, officers, enlisted, staff, civilians, like exceptional. And I had done well in the Army up to that point. I'd done well in college, all those things. I was always successful. Well, that was the first time that I was surrounded by people that were just exponentially better than me. And to me, that was threatening. Like, I did not expect it. And it's humbling. And I look back on it and I'm glad I had the experience. But you know what it caused initially when I got there was I was obsessed with not getting kicked off the team. I was obsessed with it. And
Yeah, I think that's pretty normal. I was the same way.
It is. And what an unhealthy way to live. I mean, everything that I did, I'm like, I've got to do this right, or I'm not going to be asked to come back after a couple of years. Like, I've got to
Yeah.
do everything. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, to the point where you're working 6-7 days a week, 16, 18 hours a day, 4 hour out sleep in the parking lot, just the amount that you're willing to give to be on the team, and the organization demands it. And I'll kind of throw it back to you on this. Is the the best thing about the 160th is a lot of the tools it gave me. And I always say this: the best thing about the 160th is the flight lead program. The worst thing about the 160th is the flight lead program. But I say that like in jest. But the regiment has taught me so much stuff. But also, there's probably some significant emotional trauma from the organization.
Yes.
But so I'll throw it back to you and let you finish your thought there.
Sure. No, thanks. Yeah, and I think you summed that up very well. I think that obsession, that initial obsession with not wanting to get kicked off the team. I had a couple of good mentors at the time, folks that at the time I don't know if they were looking out for me or not, but had said a couple things to me, or had been like, "Hey, man, you have got to, like, instead of focusing on yourself and how you project yourself, you've got to focus on the mission. You've got to be more concerned about, the bigger team, the bigger picture." And I'm very thankful for those folks, because that's what ultimately got me through, and, was able to also help those that came in after me, to say, like, "Hey, don't worry, you're here. Like, we need you, and unless you're completely failing or just not getting, the organization or our mission, you're gonna do okay." So I was just very lucky to have a couple of really good friends. But backing up then to this time, my initial time frame that I was assigned to the regiment was, like you said, man. I mean, they are long ass hours, and so my first break from the unit, break, so to speak, by the way, I went to a master's program. My first break was in 2013. And so that's, 2008 to 13 time frame where I just been full throttle forward. And then all of a sudden I'm at a school for a year, and the throttle is pulled all the way back to zero. And it was fine. Like, initially I'm like, "Hey, man, this is great. Like, I am going to take a knee. I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to reconnect with my friends. And, I'm going to study things that I'm interested in. I had this great plan to get in shape. I'm going to, do all these things for Ben channels at the time." And, I was listening to your most recent podcast with Nick, and his situation was virtually the same as mine, where I started getting these dizzy spells that would come on for no reason at all, no specific trigger that I could find. And I thought that I was on the verge of dying, passing out, something seriously wrong with me. And it freaked me the hell out. And so that was the indicator of how hard I was working. But at that time in 13, I had no idea what the hell was going on. So just like Nick, I got examined by every specialist in the area, where I was assigned at the time, all coming back, negative results. And I'm like, there's something clearly wrong with me. And not only did I have that concern that I would have the onset of these dizzy spells, but I didn't know when they were occurring. So every single feeling, I became ultra sensitive to every sensation that my body had. and I was on edge, and it was noticeable for everybody around me. So I'll save the longer story, for maybe another time. But I ended up eventually, after seeing all these doctors, I had a former Air Force Special Operations doc who was seeing me at the time. He was retired as a civilian. He's like, "Would you be willing to go talk to a psychologist or a psychiatrist?" And I said, honestly, I don't care. Like, I just want to go talk to somebody to see if I can, deal with some of this anxiety that is just getting worse and worse by the day. And that's when, my whole process started of getting treated for anxiety and talking to a therapist and understanding that, what probably was occurring at the time was I operated very well in a high operational tempo organization. And what that did for me was that obviated my stress. So it decreased my stress levels by operating and functioning at a high level. And when I throttled all the way back, when I went to school, my body is like, oh hell no. Like, you are used to operating much faster and at a higher level. And it started presenting itself with these physical issues. And it was almost a full year of 24/7 anxiety, trying to figure out what the hell was wrong with me. So I'll pause there if you have any reflections.
Did you, based on that anxiety, for me, I didn't really know what anxiety was until I went to the regiment. And I'm just, sidebar, all my Rangers are listening to this, like, there's only one regiment. But we're talking about the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, not the 75th Infantry Regiment. But for me, I was the same way. As I operated really, like, it's like when we did our Iraq deployment with the conventional army in 2006, that 15-month deployment, that was my home. I can remember you and I flying back from, like, to Crit or somewhere. And do you remember, this was early in the morning and we saw a guy digging by the side of the road, and I don't remember who was flying.
Oh,
but
yeah.
do you remember that? And we were like, hey, let's come around and smoke this dude that was digging by the road. And then, like, right then, 2 Apaches appeared and, like, stole our shot. And I remember I was like, I got all pissy pants about it. I was like, look, stupid Apaches. And you're like, man, it's kind of their job. And I was like, yeah, good point. And then we just, I don't know what we did. I don't even remember if we shot, or I don't think we did, but maybe we did. But I was very at home in that environment where it was, I don't want to say it was chaos, because it really wasn't, but it was definitely, at that time, it was the Wild West still in Iraq. And we were kind of doing whatever we wanted to a certain extent, with oversight. But I felt like I operated really well, and it was very normal to me. And I remember coming home, or the first time I came home on what do they call that, R&R? Because I got like I was like the second to last guy to, there's got to be a first guy and there's got to be a last guy that goes on leave. So some dude goes on leave,
and there's got to be a Christmas guy.
Yeah, and there's a Christmas guy. So I was the guy that got that because I was like a week behind the main body. So I drew the straw that was like, I did like 11 months in Iraq before I got to go home. And luckily it was my saving grace, because we got extended. And so when that little 2 weeks at 11 and a half months in, that 2 weeks was enough to get me through the last 3 months. But the whole point of this diatribe is I remember coming home and driving on the road, and my wife was driving and I was in the passenger seat, and every time we'd go in there, under an overpass, my butthole would pucker up, or I remember there was like a dead dog on the side of the road, and like I pushed the steering wheel into the middle of the road because I was thinking there was an IED in the dog. I was still in that mindset. And I say all that to say is, even in the 160th, at that higher operational level, I felt really at home there. And I don't know that I had a physical manifestation, but definitely the anxiety was there and I guess I should back that up and say my hands would sweat really, really bad, and my feet would sweat really, really bad. Actually, on one deployment, I remember I was in Djibouti and I went and bought those Sanuk sandals. They're like little.
Yeah,
they look like Hey Dudes, kind of. But this was before Hey Dudes, and I remember like I just had to have something loose because my feet were just I'd take my socks off at the end of the night. It was like I did a 20-mile ruck march or something. They were just drenched and soaked because I was under so much stress and anxiety during that deployment. But so when you kind of switch gears and slowed down, and did you ever get it? Was it ever connected with the psychologist or the psychiatrist that it was anxiety and stress that was causing it?
Yes, no doubt about it. And I wasn't all that adverse to it at the time, knowing that the stigma, because definitely at that time, the stigma was there for getting diagnosed with anything mental health related. That the systems that they have in place now were not as they were probably in existence. They probably were not as refined as they are now, and it didn't give the docs as much leverage that they can make assessments over time, and that they can to help folks that are going through these time periods. But yeah, I mean, I got the adjustment disorder. Initially, it was the diagnosis, and it kind of lined up correctly, and they put me on a medicine to stabilize my anxiety, and honestly it worked, man. And it was just kind of interesting. And I'll say this too, like I found out later on down the road that my sisters had also been dealing with this on their own, and we just didn't talk about it. Like, it just didn't come up in conversation. They had their lives, their husbands, their families. And as I started articulating what I was going through, they're like, oh, hey, same thing happened to me like a couple years ago. And I started, getting so, and I was just like, so thankful. I mean, I think by definition as being a triplet, they have a lot of the same DNA as I have. So it just makes sense. And I just found that to be pretty interesting as well.
Yeah, when you talk about adjustment disorders, there's a whole slew of there's adjustment orders. There's adjustment disorder with anxiety. There's a bunch, and there is there's biological factors that go into that. There's psychological factors that go in that, and social factors too. And I think with probably like you and I, there's definitely like to draw the connection between your sisters, you were probably genetically predisposed to that via some type of neurochemical issue, physical health, would make you all three susceptible to adjustment disorder. And for the uninformed, adjustment disorder is if you read the common literature, it usually talks about it's with younger kids. I'd probably argue that in the military, there's probably a higher volume, obviously, because there's no kids in the military, but there's probably a lot more of that diagnosis in the Army, because it's probably a catch-all, but it's typically dealing with an acute situation generally. But you can move into a stress disorder that is acute stress disorder, which would be something, some event happened and you show a response to it within like a month or so. But anything beyond that month, you're kind of moving out of the acute stress disorder and into a PTSD type situation. But adjustment disorder is not, although they're kind of overlap, but it's not the same as PTSD. So, and I think for us operating at that high capacity, there is definitely a social factor in there. And if you have a great support system at home and you have a spouse or significant other that supports you, it's going to help you in that situation. But if you don't, it could probably also hurt you and make that anxiety come to the top. Or come to the surface. I think you're right. There's definitely a biological factor to that. And if you didn't learn coping mechanisms early on, so take your, like you were talking about, you're moving around constantly and you kind of learn to compartmentalize and close off emotionally. That could, I'm not full disclosure, not a psychologist, never. But I did stay in a Holiday Inn Express last night, and but there could be some correlation between that kind of emotional closed offness to that that kind of doesn't really help with anxiety. Was there any? Was it just anxiety, or was there a depression present as well, or was it just one or the other, or both?
No, so yeah, both. The anxiety, of course. I was worried about the next time I was going to feel like I was going to faint, the dizzy spells, very anxious about that. There was a time in 2013 that I woke up and the school I was going to was in Alabama. And so I was going I lived in Nashville for the better part of 10 years. And so during the weekends when I was at the school, by the way, away from the 160th, I was coming back on the weekends to Nashville. And the cool thing with that is, it felt like almost that I didn't leave during that time period, even though I was in another place altogether. But
and this is when you were living like downtown, like way downtown in Nashville, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's correct. Well, my wife, girlfriend at the time, wife Courtney, she was also living downtown, and I was coming back and I was staying with her. And when I was in the middle of this, trying to figure out what the hell was going on with me, I woke up. It was a Saturday morning. So I came, that Friday night from school. I woke up that Saturday morning, and it was the first time in my life where I was fully depressed and did not want to wake up. And I just wanted to lay there. And, I mean, for those that have been there, the feeling. You just have zero motivation to do anything. And that was such a debilitating feeling. So, yeah, I mean, at that time when I was just trying to figure out which way was up, depression did play a role, man. And it was tough because folks can say what they want about depression or anxiety or mental health. And I think now, in this day of age, it's very much, understood that it's a very real thing. But yeah, I mean, to that point, I mean, it was such a real feeling that nothing mattered. That was a tough thing to live through at the time. And I had everything going for me. There was nothing really wrong. But man, that was difficult.
Yeah, that really kind of resonates with me. That when you said you kind of had nothing, you felt like there was nothing, worth. Did you say living for? Did I hear you right, or was that me thinking?
No,
that
like I think there was nothing. No, that was totally you thinking that in your head, which is I appreciate what you think in your head. It was well, no, there was nothing really bad going on. Like Yeah.
Yeah, well, the reason I said that is because I dealt with a very similar incident where I just felt like there was nothing worth living for, and this is when um, I was out of a job. And actually, at the time, I had a job. I was making really good money. I had zero purpose, and I knew that the company was going to go under, or I knew that they were on the downward slide, and I knew it was only a matter of time. And I was making money hand over fist. It was the best I've ever been paid in my life, and I had no purpose there. And I can distinctly remember just I could not. I mean, like I felt paralyzed to get out of bed because I was just so tired. Like I couldn't even keep my eyes open. It was like every part of my body was like, hey man, we got to go into preservation mode and you just need to sleep because you can't. And I distinctly remember thinking to myself, like, you know, like I'm totally worthless right now as a dad and a husband, and I couldn't lead my family. I couldn't get out of bed. And I thought, you know, I could just kill myself and everybody gets, I got a shit ton of life insurance and it's like a better thing for like everybody wins in this situation. And for me, it wasn't, I never got to the point where I thought I would act on it, but it definitely was a thought that crossed my mind. Like I never planned it or I never, went to that level, but it definitely crossed my mind a few times. And that was because of the depression. And for the listeners to kind of qualify, you weren't in like a normal, this wasn't a civilian college. You were in the Air Command and Staff College down there with the Air Force, right? At this time?
Yeah, I don't know if for those that are listening in, if you've heard of the Air University master's program, but yes, I do have a master's from the Air University at the Air Command and Staff.
Yeah,
it was. Yeah, all joking aside, a wonderful year. I loved it down there. It was just tough for me personally.
Yeah, yeah. Not like we're not talking like physically tough because it's the Air Force, but and
correct.
That is completely on purpose. Like I love to hate on the Air Force. They're great guys and we can make fun of them because they're our brothers in arms, but total Air Force.
Yeah, they do it for us. And it's all good. Yeah. So, that you kind of parlay this into, another aspect of my life because, we could spend a lot of time definitely on this part. But there was a moment in my life when I was not doing anything meaningful for a job. And it actually, believe it or not, was at the same time when COVID started becoming a thing. And folks were just getting sent home in droves like that. Hey, there's no work for you today because we don't want to get each other sick. So just go home for the week, check in the following week. And nowadays I look at that and I'm like, oh my God, that'd be awesome. Like, I'm going to go woodwork. I'm going to go, do some other stuff. I'm going to take my kids to, some mountain town out west and go hang out. But back then when I was in a job that just had no impact on others, really no meaning. It was, you were just kind of, you weren't even a cog in a machine. You were just a cog that was just spinning and it didn't spin anything else. Man, it was rough. And I turned to drinking and I took it to next level. I had always been like a big bourbon guy in my, younger years. And for a multitude of reasons. I mean, you live in Nashville, bourbon's a popular thing. It's the same, in the mid 2000s, that's when really the industry was coming back. I mean, you couldn't sell bourbon in the, late 80s, early 90s. And so it just it became part of just what I did. And I honestly just enjoyed it. But when I was in that environment where what I was doing was not meaningful and we were being sent home, and it was just miserable, I found myself just like, yeah, I got nothing else to do. I'm just going to have a drink and, live it up and have a good day. And I just realized, further down the line that I was drinking way too much at that time, to where I had to seek help and ask, to raise my hand and say, I need some help with this. So that's just another aspect that not everybody knows about. Definitely my closer friends do, but I'm willing to kind of unpack a little bit as well.
What when that happened? So we know that probably the contributing events was that COVID and not really having a purpose and not really having an impact on the thing you were doing. But and I think that is also rooted in the organization that we came from. That when you were doing a mission, it wasn't like a training event. There was real impacts to real people. These are national level important things. And do you think that, I'm assuming that, going from that sixth gear down to first gear where now you have really no purpose, it leads to drinking. How did that impact your home life? Did your wife notice it, or did you kind of hide it from her, or did she know about it, or what, how did that go?
Can I answer yes on all of the above? So a couple things, to say first is also throw in there that it's my personality to drink.
Yeah, you're like a fun guy. Like everybody loves to hang out with you. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. No, I'm kidding. It's more that like when I started, I couldn't stop. I mean, like that's how it is with like chocolate right now. If there's chocolate in this household, which after this podcast, I will go look for chocolate. I'm going to finish it.
Ooh, you should go get those those s'mores from Costco. You guys get those?
Oh,
they're
man.
like $10 for a bag. That's bad.
Sounds delicious. I would, yes, I wouldn't be able to stop. I'll finish the bag. But same thing with drinking, man. And so, yeah, my wife was very in tune with what I was doing because here's why, man. I enjoyed the taste of bourbon. Well, unfortunately for those that drink bourbon, you're talking about something that's at, I forget the exact numbers nowadays, but like what, just under 40, 40+% alcohol. And so when she would come home and she would see me completely not present for the kids, for her, for anything, I mean, she immediately was. It was a problem, and at the time, what I would think was, what I'd be like, screw you, like, what else am I going to do? I've got nothing else going on. Like, I'm an adult. I can drink. Why are you giving me such a hard time? And I wish I would have taken her, her viewpoint more seriously, because it just led to me drinking more because I was pissed and I was doing something not meaningful. And I had the time because I was at home, trying to not catch COVID. And it never before. And I think I had a couple, I don't want to say, I think I had a couple of moments before this time where certainly I drank too much and had a couple of folks that'd be like, hey man, like that was too much. And I would always like chalk it up to like, yeah, that's an anomaly event. I did drink too much. That's my mistake. I'm sorry. But what I didn't realize was happening was I was just getting to a point to where I just wasn't able to stop, and I would just keep going until, we'd go off the rails. And so that, kind of became a thing again when I was doing it at home. And I wasn't around anybody. And I think about it now and I'm like, man, I wish I could go back and just tell myself like, it's not worth it. But it's, I haven't drank and, it's been over 4 years at this point. I haven't had a single drink. And I've actually gotten to a point to where, what helps me is I play the tape in my head, by the way. Like if I were to have a drink, what would happen? And I think, okay, I'm going to have a drink. I'm going to get tired. And I'm going to probably drink a whole hell of a lot to where I'll ultimately pass out. I'm going to wake up with the, worst headache of my life. My wife is going to walk out. My kids are not going to understand why, daddy is, in the fetal position in bed. You play that tape and you're just like, you know what? It's not worth it. And so I've just gotten to a point to where I'm just in a wonderful spot, and can help others. But I will say, man, it was a struggle, personally. And I did get off the elevator at a higher floor. And now that I'm part of this, camp, I've talked to others and opened up and have learned so much, about folks that have been struggling on their own. And I can tell my story and how I got through it. But, I also self-reported through the military at the time. And that scared me and it pissed me off because I thought, all right, well, there goes my career. And this is before I was a battalion commander of an aviation unit. And if you'd like, I'm happy to go into this a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think it's important that people understand that you can come out of this on the other side. How was the chain of command and the support when you kind of
amazing,
self-reported?
I will tell you that there were a couple people in my life at the time that if they were not there, it'd probably be a different outcome within my chain of command, within my peer group. If they were not there, I'd be in a totally different spot. And so, that all said, I'm very thankful for them and the chain of command, legit, that gave me the full ability to seek treatment and to know real personal loss in the job that I was in at the time. So that went well. What I will say, though, that did not go so well was I was working in a joint command at the time, and I went to a doctor. It was a Navy doc, and this is no hit on him. And, I look now back on it, that everything happened the way it did, and it was supposed to happen that way. And I'm comfortable with it. But you can, like, if somebody goes and seeks out help for something like alcohol, there is a little bit of flexibility that a doctor can say, okay, look, yes, you have these issues, but let's get you involved with a program to get some therapy, get some help, and let's ground you for a time. And I was in a non-flying role, by the way, at the time. There's like a 4-year point where I was not flying, just due to the jobs, and this was like year 3 in a non-flying role. And so, what the doc ended up doing was just totally medically disqualifying me permanently, and I didn't know that was happening. I thought that it was going to be more or less like, hey, good job, let's get you in a program. We're going to ground you while you're in this non-flying role, and we're going to reevaluate you a little later down the line, and go from there. Like that's what. and I think you kind of get that in some venues, but again, no hit on the doctor himself. He was just doing what he thought was the clear thing to do. Well, as I was in the middle of my treatment program, I got this email from Human Resources, and it said, hey, you're medically disqualified. You will no longer fly military aircraft. And by the way, your aviation incentive pay, which I had already earned my incentive pay to continue on through like my 20 something year of service.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Hit like all your gates.
Right.
Yeah.
I hit all my gates. They're like, by the way, we are stopping your pay immediately. And even if you do get your pay back later on, you're not going to recoup the pay because it's an incentive pay. It's not an entitlement. It's just a whole different policy that goes in line there. And I'm like, I cannot believe right now that I am getting punished because I have an issue that I need help with, and I raised my hand to seek out the help. And now we were relying on, just like I think anybody would rely on that incentive pay every month to come in as just part of our budget, because it was something I always got, and that went away. That I will say, once again, looking back on that time frame, even though I was bitter, that just made me even more cynical at the time. Man, it was the best thing for me, truly. And what ultimately happened to, you've said this before, make a long story long, is I ended up, through the help of doctors that were my friends within the organization who knew Ben Channels, they helped me navigate the waiver process through Fort Rucker and Army Aviation. I even got told, hey, Ben, like you have like a less than 2% chance of commanding the battalion that you have because of what you're going through. You should consider delaying taking command until you can work through all this stuff. That's what I was up against, but I did the right things. I listened to mentors and friends, and there were a whole hell of a lot of people that were looking out for me that helped me push the packet through for a waiver. And I ultimately got the waiver and got everything back. And like I said, part of that was to never stop acknowledging that I had a problem, and I couldn't have another drink while serving in the military. And, I've been out for over a year now, I still haven't had a drink, and I wouldn't have changed any of it for what I went through back then. So, it was kind of a lot, probably not too different than what some other folks have gone through. But it certainly, you come out on the other side, in a much better spot, and I'm present for my kids and all those things that come alongside of it. I will say this too. Sorry. I am so very thankful for Courtney for sticking around, because she had multiple off ramps that she was fully, absolutely justified in jumping on and getting the hell out of here. And it takes an extremely special person and genuine love to stick around with somebody, like just stick around with someone like me going through a time like that. And, I just wanted to put that out there as well, that support structure was critical in where I am today.
Yeah, I think it's important to acknowledge that as well. And it's also important to realize that more than likely during this time, she probably stepped in and led your family in some capacity, if not totally.
Totally did.
I know when my wife stepped up and led the family, I remember her and I having this conversation. I was like, I just cannot, you got to take the wheel here. Like, I can't do this. I was like, I need you to drive for a little bit. And she did. And there comes, that can kind of come, that can be a slippery slope or a dangerous territory. And I've talked about this on other shows, is in a traditional relationship, one of those, typically the female looks to the men for leadership and to lead the family and to be that strong one. It's just like a biological thing, right? And so when we get to these points, due to whatever circumstances, be it anxiety, depression, PTSD, whatever the trigger that got to this point, a lot of women can't handle that. And it's not like they're like a total bitch or anything. It's like biologically not there for a lot of women. And so that's their off ramp, and they leave because, it would be a totally different story. I'm guessing, 8 out of 10 times, if this was their female friend, they would stick by their friend and see him through. But when it's this weird dynamic with a husband and wife, a lot of wives have trouble when, when the male has, these vulnerable times. Whereas the other way, if the woman is a vulnerable time, it's just natural that the man is going to try to, or would want to try to comfort or fix the problem, which is often not what they want. But you get the picture here. So it's a testament to her, sticking by you to kind of see this thing through. And I think it's important for all the people that are, military and law enforcement and first responders, is that the drug of choice is alcohol, because it's not illegal. And so that's where you're going to find the overwhelming majority. And I think for you, I think it probably, and my question here is, I would suspect it made you actually a better commander, and you probably led with a lot more empathy than you would have if you hadn't had that experience. Do you think that did it affect how you commanded?
It is without question that it helped. And yes, I could get a better sense of, what was going on behind the scenes, the things that I didn't have, in front of me. I could kind of read between the lines and help folks out, in those types of situations. And I was lucky enough to where I had a couple, I don't want to say lucky that we had them, but you're always going to have issues. And we had like 400 people in the unit. So there's bound to be something. So, but I was lucky that I had those types of situations in which I could be empathetic, and help out some folks. And you know what? There were, I was very guarded in telling, just everybody about my own personal experiences with it. But there were a handful of folks, and whether they were going through a situation or if it was like my close, the folks I was working with closely, I would let them in on it. And I think you've talked about it too, how we shield the vulnerability. And, when you have a leader, it's not necessarily a good thing to just expose yourself to all your vulnerabilities. That's another philosophical debate that, you'll probably have at some point on the podcast. But I did share it, with individuals at times. And one, it brought us closer, in my opinion. But I also learned, just like Nick said the other day too, like you open up to somebody about it and they're like, you know what? Hey man, like, I'm dealing with the same stuff. Like, how did it start for you? So you get that opportunity to start telling others your story, and change lives in that way. So, it did definitely play a very positive role as commander. I do have a question for you. Just, when you're talking about Courtney and being able to take the helm, while we're undergoing, the most difficult, most challenging time of our our relationship. What what do you think that? And I don't know if you know this. Maybe you do. Do you know what Courtney does for a living? And if you don't know, take a shot. Take a shot at what you think she does.
I feel like I should know this because I'm pretty sure we had this conversation, but nurse practitioner?
Okay, so yeah, maybe you do. Yeah, you're spot on. I was gonna say, like, for those out there, like, I feel like so many of us in our community are with spouses that are in the healthcare community because it is so. I know, I know opposites track, all that thing, but it is so congruent with how we live our lives, and Courtney is a nurse practitioner on the cardiology side, and she goes to work and every day, like, it's something different. And so she has to take charge, at work and make decisions on the fly. And so, she is a natural leader, and, it's pretty cool because I met her when she was a brand new nurse, in Nashville. And, I saw this, probably, 1-2 years out of college, up and coming nurse, who, wasn't sure of how to do, her job. And I mean, she knew what to do, but she didn't know if she was doing it, good or, but to see how she has become like this, this leader, and really she's crushing it, has been also very cool to experience. So another nod, tip the hat to Courtney for being that rock in the family, and being able to take over when I just was not present, and going through my challenges. So.
Yeah, I think it's important to note, I think nurses are like the warrant officers of the medical field.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so
but
too.
I'm being a little facetious, but kind of not. But I also think it's important to kind of talk. My wife, she's in nursing school for RN, and a lot of people don't realize that nursing. I honestly thought, I was like, all right, look, like, wipe some dude's ass and, like, give the dude a shot. Here's some Motrin, take your meds. I'll be back in 15 minutes. It is the stuff they have to know. And I'm not a doctor. I don't have a medical background. And it's actually the furthest thing that I'm interested in. Like, I have zero, like, it doesn't interest me at all. And, what was interesting, my wife was telling me she was doing her clinical rotation, in the surgical ward. I don't know. I think that's what it's called. And she had a guy with a lady with a tracheotomy, and it needed to be cleaned. And this lady was in her mid 50s and obese. And she said when she walked in the room, you could smell, it smelled so bad because the lady was so overweight that she hadn't had a shower in like 6 weeks or something. And you can imagine, and what she's explained to me, she's like, I'm lifting up folds and cleaning just gunk out from these folds of fat. And, and she's like, all these other doctors had come in there and just written this lady off, that she wasn't a human anymore. And she's like, I went in there and I just saw like one of my kids, and she's like, I washed her hair, I gave her a bath, and then that day the lady got she hadn't been able to speak in 6 weeks, and she got the trach. I don't know if they take it out or like they just put a thing over it. I don't know what it's called, but she was able to speak. So the lady, her first words, her husband was there, and she told her husband how much she loved him. And then she told my wife, she's like, oh my God, you've done more for me in, an hour than all these doctors have in 6 weeks, because she just treated her like a human and washed her hair and gave her a bath. And like and my point to this is, for nurses, and I never knew any of this stuff because I was like, fucking nurses, who cares? But, I never knew that I'm not trying to be crass. It's like not a thing that I care about, until she was, and she's always been a provider, like a caregiver, like that's just her MO. And, she, I just never thought like they've got to do the medicine dosage calculations. They got to do all this math and figure. I mean, I'm sure there's a computer now that helps them, but they've got to do all this stuff. But then they also treat the human condition. They're over there like washing hair and wiping butts. I mean, it is not the same as a doctor who comes in there and it's just kind of, I'm sure there are a lot of great doctors. There's also a lot of bad doctors. There's also bad nurses. But what I'm saying is I think nurses are cut from a different cloth and they deserve a lot more respect than probably we typically give them. So, good job, nurses.
They're amazing. Yeah.
So,
we love you.
Yeah. What about, so after this whole thing with the alcohol incident, you're commanding a battalion now. Everything's going good. And at this point, your battalion command is coming to an end. And I'm assuming you guys had the conversation and you go, hey, we're going to punch out and leave the Army. What was that? We kind of talked about it earlier, but what was that transition like as you talked about you had the 9 months and you kind of were doing daddy daycare and, what was the thing, where were you looking to go to work and where did you land and what was the, was there a delta there from what you thought it was going to be like to what it really was like, or did you land where exactly you wanted to?
So, this is always a good question. And every transitioning service member has a different perspective. But this is mine. And I will say that I had no intent whatsoever of landing in the defense contractor or defense industry. None. That's part of why I got out of the military is I want to blaze that new path, do something different. So that's what I started with. Well, just like a lot of folks, I was involved with 3, maybe 4 transition programs, resources that were offered to transitioning service members. Can't say anything, better about them. I've met some wonderful people who I will be connected with, for years to come. No question about it. But there still is this idea out there that because you have served in the military, whether it was 20, 10 years, whether it was 4 years, doesn't matter, that you have clear transferable skills that will land you a prolific offer in the civilian sector when you get out. Now, let me caveat all of this to say that I know what you're getting when you hire a service member, when you're hiring a soft special operations soldier who is retiring. I know what you're getting, and your transferable skills absolutely would go into an organization and bring in revenue, change a culture, all good things, right? I know that. Employers out there don't know that. And you know what? Frankly, most of them, and this is okay, they don't give a shit. And it's okay. But I think that I went into it thinking, the mindset like, oh, I'm just going to go to this corporation and just say, hey, I just, finished leading 400 people. And I had, logistics, I had operations, I had communications all under my purview. Like, I'll come in and start making a change. I got 0 job offers on the civilian sector. And so that was one aspect of it. That the second aspect of it was, and I'm talking about it with a lot of confidence right now because of what I went through. I was not walking into these interviews saying like, look at me, like I have all of these skills, like they're totally amazing. I've been a great leader. Everybody loves me. I'm going to do it. It's not like that at all. I've been, I was trying to translate what I did in the military and how that would, work for a company. So, I went I studied how to do interviews. I did a lot of mock interviews. So I went into it like that. But um, I also had to figure out, like, what do I want to do? Like, what do I truly want to do? And I had to dig deep, and I couldn't figure it out. I actually thought that I wanted to go into construction for the longest time. And so I was meeting with senior vice presidents. I was meeting with COOs of larger construction firms and having lunch with them. And, you think because of a network connection, once your foot's in the door, then you'll be able to hit it off. Well, there was a lunch that I had with some folks in a construction company that were building thousands of residential homes a year, and I would have went in. I was willing to, come in at a not even a high level. I'm talking like not entry level, but just a little bit beyond that. And at the lunch, the CEO was like, what makes you, what kind of skills do you have? Like what value would you bring? And, so I was able to kind of convey my value prop to the COO, and he's like, okay. And then he goes, but can you even read a set of blueprints? That was a question. And right there, I knew, like, I knew that's what it was going to go downhill at that point. Because my answer was more or less along the lines of, can I read them at the detail that you expect your, on-site job managers to know, project managers to know right now? No. But if I had a weekend to, study the, how to read blueprints, or, the best way of getting spooled up on that kind of thing, like, give me a weekend and I'll come out on the other side and I'll have a good working knowledge, and I'd be able to build on that, and I'd find the right resources and mentors to help me along the way. But that's not the answer they're looking for. They're looking for that person that can hit the ground running today. And it's unfortunate, but companies will hold out and they'll wait, and they'll either source it with somebody that's already in the company, or like I said, they'll wait for that person that meets those requirements. And for a lot of folks, military, that are transitioning, it's very difficult just to get past the recruiter who is looking at those job requirements and saying, well, you don't qualify because you can't read a set of blueprints, so you're automatically off the list. So that was my initial exposure, and man, what a shock, because I just thought, and you always, like, we have friends and we see people that are out there that have landed these, amazing corporate jobs, and are, you just imagine that they're making so much money and that they're just, they're just buying, yachts and fast cars, but there's a reason that some of these folks have gotten them, and I will tell you that that's not how it happens for the majority of us. So it was difficult. And then I ended up going defense contracting sector and landing a role. But I'll pause there if you have any questions.
Well, no, I think it's when you look at, civilian companies, and this isn't all civilian companies, but a lot of times you just don't fit their agenda. I took a job, and I thought I was a great fit, and I guess I am to an extent, but my way of thinking about things, or maybe I would say, humans are more important than hardware, quality over quantity. When we go down the soft truths, those are kind of like my adopted guiding principles, right? And I wanted to come into an organization and make it, effective and efficient, and like a place that everybody wants to be there every day. And the real reality is, the people that make the decisions don't really give a shit, because you're upsetting the apple cart. Like, it might be miserable for everybody downstream of them, but their life is great. And when you come in with all your grandiose ideas, and I actually deal with this as a hiring manager of, well, this is
It's
how we
threatening.
did it. And yeah, it's a threat. They don't want to hear it. You're just, hey, let us stay in 1997 where everybody's comfortable. And I'm sure there are a bunch of Silicon Valley things where this doesn't exist. But the overwhelming majority of companies, they're whatever they're doing is working, and they don't want to adjust. Eventually, they'll be forced to adjust because of external factors. But
yeah,
you coming into a place thinking that you're going to change it is probably not a great plan, and you're going to be let down. And I'm not trying to say that to be, don't ever try, don't rage against the machine, don't, but you have to set expectations at some point that you've got to kind of find your purpose somewhere else. You aren't your job. And I still, and what you said is, and I think this is a good segue to get into, is to find your purpose. For me, I still don't really know what that is. Like, I don't really know what I want to be when I grow up. I'm just still flying helicopters because it's what I know how to do. But I mean, I would probably say that a lot of times I clash with folks that I work with, not because I'm an angry guy. I'm angry at the system isn't more efficient, or it's not the world according to soft. And the reality is there's a whole industry out there that preys on veterans getting out to think that hype you up to, hey, a transition hack for the day, and this is what you need to do. But nobody tells you the real truth is fucking hard. This is very hard. It took, like we said in the beginning, it took you 6 years to learn how to be a soldier, right? And you got 9 months to unlearn it and jump back in the gene pool with everybody else. And your body isn't physically where theirs is. If you took the same guy that's the same age as you and he never was in the military, or wasn't a cop, or maybe some construction guys are the difference, but their bodies aren't going to be the same. So physically, emotionally, and spiritually, they're probably in a different place than you. And to think that you're going to walk in to Bank of America at a corporate VP job, or you're going to walk into, Delta or United as a supervisor of maintenance. It's probably have there guys that's been there and done it? Yeah, of course, but it's probably unrealistic. And you when you have those, I don't want to say high expectations, because I think you should always, aim for the stars or whatever. What's that saying? If you aim for the stars, you hit the moon, or something like that.
Yeah,
I'm not good with. Yeah, like cliche here. But I do think there's something there. You need to be cognizant that there's a whole industry that is preying on you, hyping yourself up to go in front of these murder boards, essentially. That's probably a little too far, but the episode that's coming out, it's actually going to come out before this one. I talked to Chris Jason, and some of the exact same things you said, he dealt with. And it's just important to know that you've got to be kind to yourself. You've got to take it with a grain of salt and realize that you need to figure out what your purpose is. And I don't think it's healthy to say that your job is your purpose anymore. For years, my purpose was to close with and destroy the enemies of the United States. That was it. And that's not a very healthy thing long term, And so how did you go from have you dealt with that at all, or are you ingrained in have you found your purpose, or have you had that issue, or is that not a thing for you and you're just happy to be here?
So yeah, I struggled for a long time trying to figure out my purpose. And I initially thought, hey, construction's it. Like, I would love to renovate homes. I would love to build homes, because I think we're always trying to improve on our homes. So why not just gain the skill, is be able to do it myself. And by the way, add my own flair to it, to make it all awesome. And I had like the secret, desire to want to like build like these, like, well, I guess for lack of a better term, secret passages and stuff in homes. Like I thought that would be like the coolest thing, would be like to build like all these like cool things that you can't see,
Yeah.
you
I
you
put one
open
under
up
my stairs.
that's awesome. I'd love, you got to send
like
me a picture
I got
of
like
it.
a fake door over there. It's cool.
Too cool, man. Like stuff like that I wanted to, kind of get into that niche area. And then, like I said, just going through the process, trying to just even land a job, like entry level, was a struggle. And I'm glad I went through that. But, if you haven't ever seen it, a lot of folks have, but check it out for those that may not be familiar with it. It's, so Simon Sinek is, touted a lot by, I think, military leaders, and he has a lot of really great stuff. He's a consultant, leadership consultant. But he has a TED talk out there, and it's called Start With Why. So check it out. And it's older. I can't remember, it's probably early 2000, mid 2000s. And Simon Sinek's talking about, have you seen it, Thad, by chance?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Okay.
And then he followed up with,
you've seen a version of it.
Leaders Eat Last. Yeah.
Yeah. So he definitely wrote a book. And he has like his leadership program, I think, is Start With Why. But the specific TED talk is pretty good. And it shows like this, this golden circle of, most people can, like everybody can tell you what they do. That's easy. Some, if not most, can tell you how they do it, but not everybody can tell you why. And so like he's like, what gets you up in the morning? Like, what is that thing that motivates you? And so you're like, okay, that's pretty basic concept. Nothing new there. But then he takes like a company and he uses the example of Apple, and he starts with the why. And he says, Apple, and this is paraphrasing, like Apple wants to change the status quo in the world. And how they do that is through, I think like pushing the industry standards, like doing these amazing things. And we just happen to build computers, do you want to buy one? And you're just like, oh my God, I want to go buy one right now. And it's just a really good thought. Like, so I had to dig deep and try to figure out, what is that why? What's that thing? And man, it's just like anything else in our lives. Like we think so hard about it and long that you just get so focused on it, and it doesn't do anything. You go nowhere with the progress. And I was a few months into my leave after I left the Army. I'm like, I guess construction people, are always asking like, what's new? Did you get a job? I'm like, no, like I'm still trying to find something, in construction industry. That I woke up like one day, man. And you probably noticed, like I've always had a thing for music. Like I've always loved, like, there's a lot of indie rock that I've really been, of course I grew up, in high school, the mid to late 90s, which is one of the, the best times for music, in history. And so, I'm going to get probably a lot of hate for that one, but most, I think, would agree.
I'd say the late 80s to mid to late 90s is,
phenomenal.
It was,
phenomenal,
quintessential.
And so, but yeah, I've always had this thing for music. And I've played guitar for 30 plus years. I guess about 35 years maybe. And I'm not any good, but I've just enjoyed it. And lately, over the last couple of years, I've really gotten into woodworking. I was building furniture around the house and just doing things with my spare time, which was few and far between, but I would do it. And I just woke up, man. And I just thought, why am I not connecting these two together? And why am I not taking music and woodworking and making that my thing? And so I'm like, guitar building. That sounds awesome. Like, let me look into this. I started like researching guitar building, and I thought, there's no way I could do this. Like, this is some proprietary shit way over my head, that I am just not going to be able to do. And as I explored more, it's like, wait a second, maybe I can do this. And I sought out this amazing. So, string instrument builder is called a luthier. I found this luthier about an hour from where I live. His name's Bob Grauman, and he's been building guitars for the past 40 years. Reached out to him, just cold, emailed him, and he responded back, kind of a, lukewarm response, like, hey, like, are you sure you want to learn how to build guitars? It's, time consuming. There's a lot. You don't make money doing it. And I was just like, yeah, I've got some time. Like, I would love to do an internship and just learn under you. And so I went and met him. And, first off, Bob is a wonderful, genuine human being. He was a software developer for the Navy research lab for many years. And then he ended up being a high school math teacher, has since retired and just builds guitars, but he's taken me under his wing. And so I just started doing this. And I'm like, this is amazing, but it's also like very well known. Like, you don't make a lot of money building guitars. I mean, of course, there are prolific guitar luthiers that can bring in tens of thousands of dollars when they build a custom guitar. That is very much the minority. And then the market is locked in with, your Gibsons, Martin, Taylor, Fender, so forth. So people make their money as luthiers by doing repairs and restorations, those kind of things. So I just thought, let me just jump online here and start looking at like what may be out there in terms of guitar building for veterans. And I was surprised to find that there was nothing. And it occurred to me at that moment, probably 2 or 3 months into my guitar building experience, that I was onto something. Like, I would love to start this and bring it to other veterans. And by the way, there's like virtually no program in the United States, at least, that offers this to service members. So, of course, that's where my idea for Reveille Guitar Project was born, and has since, with the last couple of months officially kicking off as a 501c3, we're starting to build that as a company and to share the art of guitar building with others within our soft veteran community. So that's how I found my why, just by happenstance, and the light bulb going off in the morning when I woke up.
How hard has it been? I mean, when I think about making a guitar, I mean, I would guess that do different shapes and wood make, I'm assuming they make different sounds, right? I mean, it's all about the angles and the fretboard. Is there, I'm assuming there's different materials that you use, like a shorter fretboard. I'm not a guitar player, although I've always wanted to be a guitar player. And it's always this thing that it's been in the back of my head, like, man, I need to do this. I just want to melt some faces. And, but I'm assuming, how long did it take you to learn how to make it, like for you to actually be able to learn and then teach somebody?
Yeah. So a few things. I'm in, so up front, I'm in no position to teach anybody how to build a guitar at this stage of my life. Because I am very much a student at this level. So I surround myself with people that know how to. And part of the program is, I have a couple folks that work alongside me. One of those being Chris Kitchens, is an active board member for Reveille, who is, if you guys know him, he was the regiment command sergeant major for the 160th. But he's been building guitars for better part of 11 years. And And so he's one of the guys that I would lean on. Like, hey, if we need to teach somebody, when we start teaching folks, like you're my guy. Like, I expect you to help me. And then the first part that you mentioned, like the types of wood. What's great is because so many things with guitar building align with like life lessons, and it's beautiful. So the types of wood that you use absolutely change the, how a guitar sounds, the exact measurements, it's like flying. It's like you have to compensate for everything. So if you take a little bit from one area, you have to give it somewhere else. Like it's, and it's so delicate that to find the right tone, when you're building, an acoustic guitar, and that's what we're doing right now. Our acoustics will eventually, grow to electrics and maybe ukuleles, other types of stringed instruments. But right now it's just acoustic. So that absolutely all makes a difference. And then just the lessons that like you can learn with this, that is the therapeutic piece of this program are things like, I could be like 110 hours into building a guitar, 110 hours, and I could use a router, and the router that day could just decide to, yank off a piece of the top of a guitar that I'm working on, which would totally damage the guitar. And you have to start in many areas from scratch. And this is what my mentor, Bob, has taught me. He's like, you've got to be okay with having to go find a new piece of wood. You've got to be okay with it. You cannot. And so part of it, I'm like, ooh, that's like part of my mentally cut. I should be able to mentally shut off and put up the wall and go find another piece of wood. But I think it's also important to say, like, more the bigger lesson here is it's just a piece of wood. Like, just go get another piece of wood and we'll start over and we'll work on it and we'll make it into something beautiful. So it's great. It's profound for me in that area because I think if you teach it right, you do walk away with life lessons, not just building a guitar. But if you build something with your hands, raw materials, it gives you such a sense of accomplishment. And then once you've created that, Thad, you can go on and create like other things. You have something that you made, and you're going to go off and create more with that single thing. So anyway, not to overstate it or talk too much about it. I'm very passionate about it, but you could tell how it's just this just is going to be my thing, and I'm excited to share it with folks.
Yeah, I think that's super cool. It's just cool to build a guitar. And I think it's really important especially for somebody like me, is learning patience. We live in a society where everything is instant. And, in your example, if I build stuff around the house, but I always rush it and it ends up looking like shit because I just want to get it done. Because I have this like mindset that it's about the destination and not about the journey. And I know that's kind of woo woo, but I wish I that's something that I need to figure out of how to focus on the journey instead of the thing. And that's really, I think you can take that into parenting and a relationship and the military. It's not about the end result. Like the end result, gang, is you're all going to die. We are all going to die. And so you might as well, live it up on the way. Full disclosure, I don't know how to do that yet, but I'm trying. I'm really trying. And I think there's also something to be said for, I don't know if you remember in Hawaii, I had this little Harley Sportster, and I chopped, when we got back from that deployment, I chopped it out and bored out the cylinders. And I'm not a super mechanic guy. I mean, I think I'm mechanically inclined, but I had no formal training. And I built that motorcycle, and just when I accomplished it and hit the starter and it fired up, I was like, I'm the smartest man alive. And just the vote of confidence for doing something like that can do. Because now when I have a thing that I need to do, that I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can do it. It's kind of, that might be kind of, that's outside my scope. I'm like, man, I built a damn motorcycle. Like, I can figure this thing out. And, you know, there's a YouTube about it somewhere. So I'm not saying that building guitars is just go watch a YouTube. I think you've got to learn from a master. Cause this is a real craftsman thing you're doing. And I think it's awesome. So, I think it's super cool. So now you've kind of found your purpose. What are you doing now what's the future look like for you?
So I think a couple of years, as we build Reveille into a viable nonprofit, I think it looks like us sending folks through a guitar building program. Right now we're doing it out of Pennsylvania, and we outsource a luthier who does an 8-day course. And I've been there, of course, and, you know, vetted the program, and I've gotten to know this guy. His name's Eric Schaefer. Does a great job with guitars. He actually does a lot of do-it-yourself guitar building online, keeps up with YouTube videos and such. But the first couple of years, we're going to outsource, and Reveille is going to more or less be on site with the folks that we send as we raise enough funds to send them to a course. And all the while, you know, we're sending them to Eric. Our strategic plan, like a 3 to 5 plan vision, is to build our own workshop. And it's going to be at our location of choice. And this workshop is going to be like if you could imagine a team room, but it's going to be kitted out with all the woodworking materials that you need to have our own courses. And it's going to, you're going to have flags from units in there, all the stuff that you would see, the swag that you'd go into a team room and because it's going to be more or less like a sanctuary for this healing process, the therapeutic, transformative experience that they're going to go through at a place that, folks will always be welcome back to. And so like, that's the vision. And so that's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of work to find the right, donors that can help us. And, but it's going to be amazing. And the programs can be endless here. Like we may be focused right now on Special Operations Forces, and that niche community. But, my goal is to make this thing big enough to where, we're bringing in veterans from all walks of the military. Would love to do that. And, can you imagine us bringing in like Gold Star family members, kids that do like a weekend ukulele build, and then taking like a piece of wood that may have meaning for them or come from, maybe the bases that their parents had operated on, and somehow putting that into the guitar itself, as well. Like you can do so much with the program and guitar building. You could do kit builds that are 4 days for guys that don't have as much time. We could do, a 10-day course for folks that are just looking for a longer time period to really develop their skills as guitar luthiers, so that they go off and build. And then after, a donor is always going to say like, okay, so they build their own guitar, then what? They have a Reveille guitar. That's where they get injected into the other nonprofits that are there for veterans to help them along their journey, whether it's songwriting, learning how to play the guitar. We just come in early where we say, hey, you're starting with raw materials. You're going to build your instrument. And then, we're going to open up the world to you for other types of nonprofits, and off you go. And to me, I think it's so obviously good and helpful. And I wanted to mention this, Dad, if I have a quick moment. There's one other thing I wanted to say.
Yeah, man, it's all good. Everything. I want to hear it all.
No, thanks so much. So there may be a couple eye rolls out there, and I've seen it, already, where when I'm like, hey, this is guitar building for special operators, this, and then you get okay, like special, like they always get all the good stuff. They get the resources. A couple things to add with that I just wanted to mention up front, because I think it's important. One is, of course, like I mentioned, I do want to expand this program, but it is going to take time. It's going to take a whole hell of a lot of work. I'm just starting in the community that I know and I'm familiar with, and then from there we'll expand. But I went back to the 160th just very recently for a change of command ceremony, and I was honored to be on the compound. And yeah, soft special operations resources are usually good. I mean, there have been times that you could probably remember where, you get cut off on some funds, or flying hours aren't what, we expected them to be for whatever reason. Everybody's hurting at that point. But when I went back to the compound, as we call it, and you see the same people that are walking around still in uniform, same civilians, the same commander, warrant officers, the ones that are, the mechanics that are working on the helicopter, all the folks are still there. I'm like, man, you're still here rowing the boat day in and day out. And I have such a profound respect for those. Like, they are doing hard stuff every single day, and it doesn't change. Like, I've been so lucky. Like, like I mentioned, I went from Nashville, I went to Louisville and lived for a couple of years. I came to the DC area. I got the command. Like, my job is changing every 2 or 3 years. I'm still part of the same community, but I'm seeing different things and get a, venue change, and family gets to check out something else. But these guys that are still on the compound are doing the same stuff, and they're deploying, and they're going on trips when they're not deployed. They're away from their families. Their families are truly sacrificing while service members are serving. And so, yeah, like, I look at that and I'm like, man, these guys really do. And everybody, I mean, if you've raised your hand and spent a day in the military, you have all the respect in the world from me. But man, they're doing just hard stuff every day. And I think that's just worth noting that these guys really could benefit from a program like building a guitar to just get that outlet. So, the other thing, and not to ramble, but, the community, that I just mentioned that you're going back to, if you're listening and you're considering going into special operations and you're not now, or if you're in the regular Army or regular Navy, Marine Corps, what have you, and you're thinking about it, and you're on the fence, like this, hopefully this can push you over, to apply and go special operations. I'm retired. I've been out for, a year from working. And really, I've been out of the special operations community for a couple of years because I did the regular Army command. I can still go back to the 160th on that compound and see the faces and be around the folks that have made such an impact on my adult life in such a positive way. I'm still welcome back with open arms in that community, and it is such like, it's hard for me to convey. Like, what do we need when we get out of the military? How you lose sometimes that purpose, you lose that impact that you had when you were serving. What I found is I have that I always know is there and I can go back to, and that underpins like so much good mental health, that I have. Like, I know that support structure exists. I don't know if I'm explaining it well. I don't know if you feel the same way, Thad, but just something I wanted to point out about that community.
Yeah, I think there's always like a bond there. You know, we have for 3rd Battalion, it's the 30th anniversary this year, so there'll be a lot of folks down in Savannah, and it's like a class reunion when we typically go back. I don't necessarily go back to every Wanza just because it's a lot to travel, but Wanza's week of no scheduled activities. It's basically a reunion, and I try to hit the fives, you know, like the 5-year ones. And it's just everybody remembers you. These guys spend, which I would say is the blessing and the curse of the 160th, is, you know, spending your entire time in one organization. It's great. It has some drawbacks. This is a family. There's always issues in families. So, but no, I generally feel the same way. So yeah, I mean, and I think too with the Reveille guitar building in particular, there's probably it's probably really cathartic, just shaping the wood and, you know, building something from a raw material that I think is probably missing in the world. So I think it's a great thing. I think it's super cool. I want to build a guitar. So let me know when you want me to come up there, and
I know a guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're at a natural place to kind of pull this all together at the end. Is there anything that you want to say to the world that's hearing this, or any kind of parting words of wisdom, or anything we didn't get to?
Yeah, I think just one quick thing that we talked about, I think a little bit earlier as well, that I wasn't able to weave in, the concept of work-life balance. And I will.
Oh yeah, that's right. We were going to talk about that.
Yeah, I will keep this.
Let's talk about it. Yeah, we got time.
I would like to say that I have brevity, but let's be honest, man. I don't have brevity. I try to sometimes on the radio. I maybe sometimes do, but most of the time,
it's like the two dudes that talk the longest about everything are talking right now.
It is just what I do. So, okay, work-life balance, and I'm going to attribute this to now General Rainey, who I want to say he's the futures commander for the Army, but he's certainly a 4-star. He was a 3-star when I heard him say this. And let me back up by saying that I first heard his work-life balance spiel when I was already a lieutenant colonel, so 20 years in the Army at that point. And it just it was the aha moment. So Thad, what is your concept of work-life balance as we know it, to kind of start it up?
Well, I'll tell you my experience with work-life balance, and maybe it's a me problem, like a psychological me problem, but I kind of think it's kind of bullshit. And I say that with the utmost respect, is I wish I could figure that out. I'm the kind of person, maybe it's like an ADHD thing. I don't know, but when I do something, I go all in on it. And it's typically my life is the part that has no balance. It's all work and no life balance. So
right.
I don't really know how to do it. And I try, but what happens is when I find myself doing life, I'm thinking about, I need to make sure that this thing at work is done. Oh, don't forget, because I have this need to be the best at the thing that I'm doing, which is typically work. And my wife would always say, well, you need to get a hobby, or what's your, you got to get a hobby. And I'm like, work is my hobby. My hobby is being awesome at the thing that puts dinner on the table. Super not healthy. Probably not a great idea. But I don't really know how to do that.
Yeah. And I think your concept of work-life balance is what the problem is. Like, to not your fault at all. Like, what everybody will tell, all the leaders will tell you, like, everybody will say, hey, Thad, you need to maintain a work-life balance, right? Like, that's what everybody says. You need to do that. But is that senior leader taking their own advice? Absolutely not. So right. General Rainey, I will never forget. And actually, it was great because of 12th Aviation Battalion, I was able to fly him when he was the, he was doing something. I think he may have been like the Army's G3 at the time, but he was at Belvoir, and I flew him up to Carlisle, I think, or something like that. And I took him aside and I said, hey, that was profound what you said, and this is what it is. Work-life balance is over the span of your career. It is not necessarily in every day. So here's an example. Like, if you're in a job right now and somebody says you got to maintain a work-life balance, what does that mean? Well, what this means to General Rainey is if he were to maintain a work-life balance, by the way, at every day that he is serving in the military, then he's going to fail at something. He's either not going to be a general officer, or his family life's going to go down the drain. And how many folks do we know? And I could have been right there with them, who leave the military, who have broken families, and it's really some fault of the person themselves, but in the reality, that is a culture that is conditioned, and you are rewarded for doing a whole hell of a lot, and understandably so, but it breaks people off and it breaks families. So his philosophy that I adopted as mine, as well, is you got to maintain it over the span of your career. And so because you can't manage it day to day, you've just got to find those periods of time. And when you know that you're going to be working your ass off at work, you've got to prepare yourself and you got to prepare your family beforehand. And sometimes you can't always prepare. But if you do, you're in a better spot. And then conversely, when you are in a position to where you can take a knee and not work as hard, and you can enjoy more of a life balance, you need to maximize the shit out of that time frame. And so that just really helped me kind of understand, like, okay, let's look at the span of my career. You got to look at specific timelines. And like the 2-year command period, as an example, that's going to be an ass kicker, probably a little bit more work than life. So what did we do? We prepared for it before command. Anytime when I was at school, prior to, those jobs where you're under the gun, so to speak, we would maximize those times. So, I throw that out there. If that can help somebody, at least have a better understanding of what that truly means, that it's okay sometimes to have a work balance over your life, but you just got to ensure you prepare for it and you prepare your family for it. My rounds are complete on that one.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good perspective, and I think to kind of lowbrow it a little bit is get in where you fit in, and I think it's I think that's probably pretty good advice. I think there's such pressure on, at least for men, there's this pressure to be a great dad and a great husband and a great provider and a great soldier or sailor, Marine or cop or fireman or doctor or lawyer or trash guy or insert job here. And you can't do it all. There's just not enough time. So I think that's a pretty good perspective of just, maximize when you can and prep when you can't. That's it's pretty good. I never really, I guess I was always looking at it, trying to meet society's expectation. And I think that's pretty good. I like that.
Hey man, we're all just,
it.
we're all just trying to do our best. Yeah. Even our parents, like even when we, to not, get to another aspect of all of this, like our parents, you may realize at a certain point, like, hey, they're not superheroes. You get, when you become that adult and you're like, okay, like it's that defining moment when you're like, they're not superheroes. And that's tough at first, but then later on you just realize, you know what? They're just trying to do their best. Just like we're trying to do our best.
Yeah. I distinctly remember the moment that I realized my mom didn't, like, she was a human. And I think I'm going through that with my kids too. My kids are in their 20s now, and I think they're starting to realize that dad probably isn't the smartest guy in the world. But it's that coming of age thing where it's just you kind of see your parents as I'm going to stop short of friends, because I know plenty of people view their parents as friends. I don't specifically have that relationship, but you kind of see, just like you said, they're just trying to do what they think's best. And when you kind of put it in that human aspect, it makes it a little bit more palatable when things go off the rails.
Yeah, man.
But well, hey,
other than that,
I think that was great.
Grateful to be here tonight, and thank you. Yeah.
Well, I think we should do it again. Let's we can brainstorm some ideas. I think everybody that's hearing this has probably got something out of it. I know I did. So thanks for coming on.
Same.
I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk with me. And I think it's going to be great. Let's do it again sometime.
Love it, man. Thanks. Appreciate you.
All right. See ya.